Oh, hi folks, it's James here. How are you all doing? Welcome to another video. This is just a video idea that I've had in my mind for a while. Thought I would finally do it. Just a thing looking at 10 albums which I've never owned and I've never actually heard all the way through. I'm sure we all have these records, you know, these albums that you just think, I wonder why I've never bought that album, why I've never heard it. I mean, clearly there are, hundreds of records, thousands of records that I would have no interest in. I don't like the artist, just not interested in that particular kind of music or whatever. But these 10 records are all things which, if you look at my record collection, you'd think, okay, it's difficult to understand why these particular albums are missing, given the kind of interests I have, the kind of musical periods that interest me, and the kind of bands and artists that interest me. So I'll kind of go through my 10 and I'll just try and give you some kind of insight into why it might be that I don't have these records. And then, if you're interested, you might want to do your own response and do something similar. So I won't take too long over it. Let's just look at this first one. This is Jefferson Airplane and Surrealistic Pillow. This is a record that I've just never particularly run into in the wild. I do see it occasionally in HMV. I've seen new versions of it, I assume 180 gram reissues of it in HMV and places like that, but I don't know, the price has never been great. Don't think I've ever seen a second-hand copy of it. I've often thought about buying a CD of it, just never got round to it really. I know some of their songs, but I'm not a fan of theirs particularly, so it's just not something which has ever seemed particularly pressing to me. But obviously, I've got a huge interest in 60s music and in rock music from the second half of the 60s, and I am interested in influential, important bands, so it is difficult to understand why I've never sort of moved in on that one, really. This next one, incidentally, I'm trying to move through these in chronological order, roughly. So this next one is Electric Ladyland. Now, I have heard this album. Many years ago I got a CD copy of it from the library. I did find one in Oxfam a couple of years ago. I think they were selling it for £100, something crazy like that. So I would have to be I'd have to make a concerted effort, a reissue or something, but it's just a willpower really. Sabotage by Black Sabbath is a record that I've always fancied owning. I am, broadly speaking, collecting all the Aussie albums as and when I see them. I've got the first album now. I've got a couple of the other ones. I've got Masters of Reality. I've got Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I've just never found a copy of Sabotage. If I was to find it in the wild and it was a good price, I would snap it up. Why I've never particularly gone out of my way to buy it on CD or to even hear it online, just pure laziness, really. Okay, so this next one will come as a surprise to some people. This is The Jam, their first album. I always thought of them as a great singles band. It never particularly occurred to me to check out their albums. I do have a reissue of All Mod Cons now, which I really like, and I used to have a vinyl copy of Sound Effects too, which is my favourite Jam album of the ones that I've heard. Again, I've just never seen it in the wild. I've never particularly been seized by a desire to grab it on CD if I'm in HMV. I kind of figure it's a record that one day I will own, but just don't have it at the moment. Okay, so next we have The Police and their debut album Outlandos d'Amour. This is a record which I really should own, really. I own all the other Police albums, I think I've got them all. I've got a Greatest Hits. This is a record that was huge back when I was growing up. It was in loads of record collections that I saw, friends' collections. I just honestly don't know why I don't own this record and why I've never listened to it all the way through. Never bought it on CD, never checked it out at the library. I don't think I've ever found a copy of it in the wild, second hand, never seen a reissue of it. Just never got around to it. Simple as that. Can't give any other excuse. Okay, this album, Get the Knack. Never heard it, never bought it, never owned it. This is a record that I've become more aware of since joining the VC. Loads and loads of people have held it up and talked about it as this kind of great album. Meant to be a really great record, meant to be really influential. Obviously I know a couple of their big singles, but yeah, I would grab it in a flash if I came across it on my travels. I've never seen it anywhere, never seen it in a record fair, never seen it on my local market stand, never run into a vinyl reissue of it. Again, I would have to go online and make a concerted effort to get it. Okay, we've got The Clash and Sandinista. Came close to buying this one in HMV on CD a few years ago. It was in a sale. Can't remember why I didn't pick it up, but I didn't. I think I've got a few Clash albums. I've got London Calling. I've got a couple of the other ones. I've got a CD best of. I've got the debut album on CD. Obviously, I know of the reputation of this record. It gets a bit of a mixed press, really. Some people kind of rave about it and say it's fantastic. Other people are not so keen. It's just one I've never got round to. I'm sure I will one day. Okay, so this next one is a bit like the Knack. This is the Cars. Now, I know hardly anything about the Cars, really. I know the big song Drive, which I believe is from this record, Heartbeat City. Lots of people on the VC talk about the Cars. They're a kind of, I don't know, what you might describe as a kind of classic new wave band. I do run into this record from time to time. It's a fairly common record in the UK. This is just, I don't know, indifference, really. It's just not a record that ever seems to particularly scream out at me to buy it. Part of me feels like it's a sort of pop music collection cornerstone, which I should have. So maybe one day I will buy it. Did get a little bit sick of the song Drive back on jukeboxes back in my youth. It's one of those songs that gets overplayed, really. So maybe that puts me off a little bit. I don't know. Just not really a band that's ever particularly been on my radar. So yeah, got nothing against them, but. Okay, so this next one, Made in Heaven by Queen. Never heard this album all the way through. I've heard bits and bobs from it. Never bought it, never got the CD, never got it on record. I'm the biggest Queen fan there is, really. I've been obsessed with the group ever since I was a kid. Just never got round to this one. I think I was a bit too sad at the time to buy it, really. The thought of a posthumous Freddie album coming out, it just didn't really appeal to me, really. And when I think about this album, it kind of brings back sad memories, I suppose. Even the Innuendo album, I actually struggle to listen to sometimes. It has a kind of pall of melancholy over it, and I don't know, I wasn't that keen on the material that I heard from this record. A lot of it sounded very, I don't know, sort of middle of the road, almost new age, a bit sort of ethereal. It seemed to be lacking some vital ingredients of the Queen sound, I don't know. But one day I should pick it up, one day I should get round to it. And this last one, this is Blur and Modern Life is Rubbish, which I've never heard all the way through, never owned it. I bought their first album on CD when it first came out, that was the Leisure album. Skipped this one, and then I bought Park Life, then I skipped the next one, whose name escapes me for the time being, and then I bought the album after that, which is the eponymous Blur album, and then I skipped the next one. So with Blur, I've always been on this trajectory of buy one, miss one, buy one, miss one. This record, I know, is meant to be really good. I've heard some songs off it. It's not as if I've never heard any of it, but I've never heard it all the way through. It's not really a record that I know, and again, I just never see it. If I found a copy of it and it was a good price, I would buy it. Who knows, next time I'm in HMV, I might finally be inspired to grab it on CD or vinyl. I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, that's my 10. Be intrigued to know if anybody else has got 10 albums they could show pictures of, anyway, because you don't own them. 10 records which I don't own, don't really fully understand why I don't own them. I've given you some reasons there, but maybe you'll think they're sort of feeble excuses in the main, I don't know. Anyway, okay folks, thanks for watching, take care, see you soon, bye bye.